So thank you again. Thank you very much for your attention. And I will try to use my yesterday motto from Castiglione's Sprezzatura impression, the art of effortless mastery, as I yesterday mentioned it. Maybe it will not happen today. I cannot use this motto for today, but we will see. So because of the keynote lecture, I would like to take a step further and ask more fundamental question about the legal philosophy, what truly stands at the origin of law, actually. So if we strip away the layers of institutional parliaments and bureaucrats, we realize something profound, that the state is nothing at the beginning. So it is a consequence. Law precedes the state, languages precedes the law, and we precedes the language. We need some people who has a conscience in his will. At the very root of the legality stands not the state, not even a society, but a human being, capable of thought, intention, and speech. So law is crystallized the consciousness, the external and the inner human order. It is how we make our durable time and space. The legislate is not merely a decide to, but translate human intention into a form to turn private meaning into public obligation. Yet every act of lawmaking already carries uncertainty, because language itself is an imperfect mirror of our thoughts. Law is born as an attempt of stabilizing meaning, but in this doing must leave the instability of meaning, this tension between desire for order and impossibility of perfect clarity. Is it the living of paradox at the heart of every legal system? So today, my lecture structure about what lies the origin of law, and the main question about it, does the law precede the state, or the state does create a law? So this will be my first question. So the origin of law, according to a Hungarian philosopher, Gyula Mór, the great Hungarian jurist, understood the reversal. The state does not create law. It is created through law. Before there was a government, there was order. Before there was order, there was a meaning. The law, in this sense, not the product of the power, but the prediction of it. The state law made is visible, the institutional embodiment of already existing moral and linguistic structures, as the President Varada already mentioned it. Every constitution, every statute, every norm is crystallized reminder of deeper human impulse to define what is the right and what is the wrong. The origin of law, therefore, lies not the command, but in the act of the articulation, in the moment when the human mind decides to fix meaning through the words. So, as Gyula mentioned, that the concept of the state is not the precedation of law, rather this law that precedes the state. The idea of the state emerges one of the consequences of the concept of law itself. So this is our first picture of what can be the meaning of the law. So the second problem, the human speech is the root of the justice. Of all creatures that exist, only human beings were given the power of speech, because only them was it necessary. As we can read it in the Dante, the Vulgari Eloquentia. Speech, as a philosopher from Aristotle to Austin, have noted this action. To speak is to perform, to make something happen in the world. The law exists only when the words acquire the performative force, when saying because is doing. The speech also betrays us, on the other hand. Every word carries its history, its ambiguity, and its sediment of misunderstanding. Dante saw this clearly. Language is both the source of justice and the greatest threat. As President Varga mentioned, that this is the typical deconstructive system of our modern age. So Dante, in his book, he celebrates the speech, the mark of the humanity, and in the Inferno, he shows that how it's fair. The moment when words lose meaning and dissolve into the chaos. As we can read that, only the human beings were given the power of speech, because only them was it necessary. So between these two poles, logos and chaos, law must find this balance. Our task to keep the legal word on the side of the reason, not on the side of the noise. So, in my opinion, the law has a performative foundation of the law as well. The very emergence of justice and law implies a performative force, which always interpretive force, as we can read it from Derrida's book. Derrida called this mystical foundation of authority. Every act of law, whether it is the first constitution or a municipal ordinance, rests upon a performative leap. The legislator does not describe the world, he creates a new one when he says, it shall be so. So the law does not mirror reality. As President Varga mentioned, that it transforms social meanings into the legal ones. And yet every performative act presumes the interpretations. The moment law speaks, it is already subject to understanding, the context, the human limits, and to the time. The law begins in an act of creation, but it survives as act of the interpretation as well. So we are in the field of the interpretation. The interpretation of anything, it is like a magic wand. The law, as we can read it from Hans-Georg Gadamer, is not meant to be understood historically, but be concretized in the legal validity through the interpretation, because the language is unstable. Every interpretation of law is transformed. Gadamer described this fusion of horizons, the moment when the text and the interpreter meet to generate a new meaning. Meaning, therefore, is never fixed. The judge does not merely apply the law, through the interpretation, he creates it. As Montesquieu mentioned that in the separation of power thought, the judges are the mouth of the law. Each judicial decision is a linguistic act, both preserves and alters the law. The act understanding becomes indissociable from the act of creation. Thus, legal certainty is not the absence of the interpretation, but the disciplined management of the endless interpretability. So we are in the really tricky situation when we try to understand a word as a building, as we previously heard that. So we cannot be sure this kind of certainty exists in our legal system. So we have a paradox of decision in this matter. As we can read it in Luhmann book, the system must provide the possibility of forcing itself to make decision if the paradox of distinction legal, illegal cannot be dissolved in any other way. Luhmann framed this paradox brilliantly. Laws exist to reduce social complexity, but every decision generates a new complexity, as Gadamer mentioned that before. Each judgment closes the system and, in closing, immediately reopens another one. The result, it is not stability, but institutionalized uncertainty, the structure that remains coherent only because it continuously transforms itself. The law, in this view, a self-observing organism, it survives not by eliminating a paradox, but by operating with it. So as you can understand it, in my opinion, the system uncertainty is part of the bigger system, which is the chaos, actually. So this dual perspective of the power, behind the legal formality lies a power, the invisible backbone of enforceability. The norm does not enforce itself, it functions only because it's supported by a credible will to act. It's the classical formula, as we can remember it, the res judicata pro veritate habetur, the decided cases is held as a truth. The law is a great stabilizing fiction. Finality does not mean truth. It means the system has decided to stop deciding. This moment, when the doubt becomes order, disagreement becomes peace, is where the legal system touches theology. From the act of closure, it's not intellectual, but moral. Moral, it is decision, let our interpretation rest and lie. So we need to believe in something which can be final in this way. But without it, we are in the deconstructive field of uncertainty. So the order, in my opinion, is born from the chaos. So as we can read it in Plato's book, the God took over all the visible, not at the rest, but moving without order, and brought in the form disorder into order. Behind all these theories lies a deeper paradox. Human beings long for order, for symmetry, coherence, and stability, yet the highest order often emerges from the first appears as disorder. The university, like society, endure not through the stillness, but through the movement, not through the rigidity, but through the diametric instability. Law is not exception. It finds harmony with the motion. Its order arises from the management of disorder. Certainty is born from uncertainty, and the peace from the conflict. Chaos, in my opinion, therefore is not the opposite of law. It is the concealed foundation and its constant renewal of our legal system. So also, I didn't know that Professor Varga will mention Aquino St. Thomas ID, but also I have here some closure about what I mean when we are talking about the dynamic system of legal certainty. So centuries later, Thomas Aquinas expressed the same truth in theology. Hence, the truth often divine intellectual immutable, whereas truth of human intellect immutable. The canon law tradition took this seriously. The dogma in the church teaches in eternal content but temporal in form, veritas aeterna and the verba temporalia. The truth endures, but its expression must change. The same principle governs the law. Values such dignity, justice, and fairness are timeless, yet their linguistic and institutional form must adapt to the age. As I have written elsewhere, I not remember, our legal norms like, and I remember, it's Heraclitus thought, the legal system is like a river, are never the same as twice. We can step into it, but it will not the same. Love must be static enough to convey value, yet dynamic enough to follow the social changes. This duality, the static and the dynamic, it what keeps the legal order alive, the mutability of form, then the price of the eternity of the essence. Okay, it's the same. So my conclusion that our system is born from the chaos and they are connected with the chaos. So where I began with the connection between word and power. Norms do not act by themselves, they depend on the will and the authority that sustain them. Even when the law appears uncertain, an imperative obligation hides beneath ambiguously, not all binding norms are formal laws, and not all formal laws owe their force to the sanction. There exist non-formal instruments that possess genuine legal acts, such as Hungarian government resolutions and counterpartner the US presidential executive orders, whose authority derives from not the coercion, but the recognition institutional will. Likewise, the international norms may operate with the external force binding the states through legitimacy rather than the compulsion. The finality is not the denial of the openness, but the acceptance of responsibility for closure. The speech remains in the system of the logos only when sustained the real authority. Otherwise, it disappears into the noise. The word creates a norm, authority preserves it, the transformation from being a design to recreation of order. And law is to nothing else than a disciplined use of magic, the art of turning words into order. And we can read it in Albus Percival, Wulfric, Brian, Dumbledore. Words are not so humble opinion, our most inaccessible source of magic. So when we are talking about the system of uncertainty, in my opinion, is more like a magic in the chaos. So we can and we should create an order from it. So maybe my speech a little chaotic, I would say, but my main conclusion is this. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope we have if you have some questions about the uncertain things on the system. So thank you very much.